Hello everyone. Today I'll be taking a session on UI for you guys, and I'm the team lead at Worktez. So today we'll be discussing important and basic topics on HTML5, CSS, Bootstrap, and JavaScript. HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language, which describes the structure of a web page and tells the browser how to display the content. If we take an example of this presentation slide, this HTML content is shown in a bold and highlighted way, which shows it is a heading, and the content inside this is in the body and it shows this is a paragraph. So this way, a web page and the tags in a HTML describes how the structure of a content should be and how the web page should display that content. The HTML element has different tags which are written inside the angle brackets. There are many tags like anchor tag, like which is represented using A, paragraph tag which is represented using P, and there are heading tags which go from H1 to H6 depending on their sizes. When we write a code in a file, we save it with either .html or .html extension, and the saved file will be rendered in the web page when we open it in any browser. So it can display the content according to what the user wishes and what the user has coded. And this is a basic syntax of HTML. This is a head tag where we give the title of a page, and we can also provide the styling as internal CSS, and we can give the internal script of the JavaScript functions. Everything in the HTML file is given inside the HTML tags, and this is the body tag where we have all the content that goes inside the body. This H1 tag says this my first heading will be the heading in the page, and this image tag it allows us to give a image in the web page. And this src attribute contains the path or the link to your image so you can display it over the web page. And this alt attribute gives an alternate text to your image. So in case if the user couldn't load the image because of the internet issues, this alternate text will be visible to them so they can understand what is in the image. And elements. An element is a designator that defines the structure and content of objects. So if whatever the content is given inside an element will display the content in that particular way. If we give a content or a sentence inside the tag P, it represents that the content will be displayed as a paragraph. If else, we give the content inside a HTML heading element or heading tag, the element or the content will be displayed within a heading. So the elements can also have attributes which provide additional information like their styling or their size or anything to the browser. The HTML also contains another feature called forms, where they can collect the user's inputs and store them at a place. The form can contain different elements, input fields, drop downs, checkboxes, etc. This is the basic code of an HTML form where we contain the form element and the tag. The every form should be inside a form tag with an action attribute. This action attribute gives us the action that to be done when the user clicks on submit or when the user gives the inputs. The label tag shows the label for the input, where this is an input box which contains the label first name, so the user can understand that he or she has to give the first name inside this input box. This input box is of the type text, so the user will only be able to give a text. We also have different types of input boxes like checkboxes, radio box, submit button, etc. Each type of input will accept only the expected type of input given by the user in the code. And we have other things and important things like tables. We have tables. The content, whatever we need to show in different categories, will be separated in the columns to show to the user in a representable way, which has columns like this, and these are the rows. We can define an HTML table using this table tag, and this TR represents the table row, and this TH represents the table heading, and this TD is the table data. We have table borders and table spaces, and then we have table padding. A padding is the space around the content. If we have a content here like hello, we have a text here. And inside the border, we have the space over here. This is called padding. And we have also margin. If we take these two tables or these two borders, the space between them here is called the margin. Then we have call span and row span. The call span tells the table to occupy a particular number of columns. If we take April as an example here, this has a call span of 3. So the single column, the single row occupies the as much as a space of 3 rows can have. And this has a call span 2, this has a row span 3. Similarly, we have HTML lists where we can have ordered and unordered lists. An ordered list has numbers with 1, 2, 3, 4, and unordered list can have this bullets. We can also change the bullets to any other specific items or icons according to our requirements. We have HTML classes, ID, which are used to style the elements later. We can provide a class for the division or for any part, any content of the HTML. So we can later style them like this with a dot and give it in the CSS. We can also have ID. This shows the attribute, and if we give an ID to any content, we can add the CSS to it using this hash symbol. We can also embed the frames into HTML. We can embed different frames. In case of this example, we have 4 different frames. Like this is a frame, this is a frame, and this is the middle frame. And we have different frames that can be embedded into a single page. We have different things like symbols. We can also include different very symbols into this HTML. And we also have icons and emojis in HTML form attributes and everything. Now let's go into CSS. So CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. It is used to define the style of a web page, including the design, layout, and variations we display. If we take an example of this slides page, if we hover on this, it shows a different color, and whenever we click on it, it shows a different color. And also the existing slide is shown in different color. So it defines us the way that our element should be displayed and the style we should give an element in this way. We have different types of CSS like inline, internal, and external. The inline styling is given within the HTML tags, and the internal styling is given in an HTML file and within the head tag using the style tag. And the external styling is written in a separate file using the .css extension. And then we import the file in the head tag using the link and relative style sheet. So the CSS styles are executed in the following order. If the inline has much more priority than the internal and external stylings, the selectors. The CSS has 2 main parts, a selector and 1 or more declarations. So we have 4 types of selectors: class, ID, universal, and group selectors. The class selector styles an element with the specified class, and ID selector styles the element with specified ID. But the universal selector styles all the elements on a web page, and the group selector can style a group of elements. Let's go to an example here. So this is a group selector where we have H1, and the properties inside it has a color of blue and a font size of 16. So this line will give the styling of this color and font size to all the H1 elements in the website. So this is called a group selector. This class selector, we can have a class name here, which will implement the styling only on the class name. An ID selector similarly, this will implement the styling only on the elements with particular ID name. And universal selector, this will implement the entire web page. CSS box model. So if this is a content, the whole space around it and between the border is called padding. The whole space after the border and between 2 elements is called as margin. We can give the padding like any number of percentage or with either px or with either remainder, we have different units to give the margin, border, and padding. Then the position of CSS box can be defined with using the position property in CSS. We have position like absolute, relative, and different properties. We can also align the text using the Z and align or Z index in the and the float properties. We also have animations in CSS where we can animate few elements, like we can animate this slides. Whenever we click on a slideshow, we can also add some animations like the fade or the transition between the slides. The similar way, we can also add in animations to our elements using CSS. This animations have different names. We can also give different duration and delay, like how much time we need the animation to take place and after how long we should start the animation and what is the direction of the animation. We can also give everything about that using the without using the JavaScript. And Bootstrap. Bootstrap is the best way to simplify CSS. It is a free front-end framework that includes HTML and CSS. We can design templates for text, forms, buttons, tables, navigation model, carousel, everything. They can also provide us with JavaScript plugins, so we can simplify the CSS and HTML we write. It also gives responsiveness to our website and can fit to any screen size and device. The most important topic in Bootstrap is the grid. As we have the box styling in CSS, similarly, we have a grid in Bootstrap where the entire box is divided into 12 columns and 12 rows. We can divide them into the columns according to our requirements. If we do not want to use all the 12 columns, we can merge the columns and use the span which we like. The first row shows the 12 columns and the second row has the 4 columns merged into one, and it has only 3 columns now. The similar way, we have 4 and 8, 6 and 6, and then 12. This can give a responsiveness to our website and will adjust or rearrange the columns automatically if we do not use any column, or if we leave a column unattended. And it has 6 classes like column, column small, column medium, column large, XL, and double XL. This defines the size of a class. Like these normal column size is less than 576 px and the small is greater than or equal to 576 px. So in this way, it defines the size of the class according to the screen size we have. We have different elements in the Bootstrap too. We have containers where we put the content in a different division box, and we can also give the padding inside it. We have 2 container classes available. One is container and one is container fluid. The container class gives a responsive and a container of fixed width. If we take example of this slide, this is only a particular size of from here to here. So this has a fixed width. This has a class container. And if we give the class container fluid, this will occupy the space of the entire screen and take the full width, which will span the entire width of the view. And Bootstrap also provides us with different background colors, alerts, and style buttons. If we have to give a basic color on CSS, we go to the CSS file or internal styling, and then we write color and then the color name. Or if we need to write any background color, we write background color and then background color's name. But this can be overcome in Bootstrap by writing a simple lines. Like if we go here, we can give the text muted to have a muted color text. We can give text primary to have a blue color text, and we can give a text success to have the green color text. So we can have a classes like this to provide different colors to the text, and we can also similarly have background colors the same way that provides this colors to the text. So instead of writing the entire code in the CSS or the HTML lines, we can give this in a class and which will give the color to our content. We also have tables in Bootstrap, which will use the grid system again. We can also have stripe table, border table, and hover them according to our requirements. We can give the images and edit them according to our requirements. Like we can have a circle, we can have rounded corners, which will not stretch the image and which will give us the super quality definition of the image. We have alerts, where we must have seen this alerts when we do some website or when we do some code and when something goes wrong. So this is clickable and we can close this. These alerts can be easy doing with this Bootstrap. We can just give alert and alert success or any text according to our requirements, which will be easy to do. We have buttons in button groups. We can group various buttons into a single button using this in a single line. Progress bars. We can have this progress bar similar to HTML, but with a more progress and more responsiveness to the website. We can give it various heights and various width and different colors too. We have a paginator and spinner here. The spinners are used to create a loaders in our website. They can be of different colors and they can be of different categories. Like either they can be a spinner or they can be a growing spinner. We can also choose the spinner size and we can give it in buttons. We have a paginator in Bootstrap, which is easy to create using the Bootstrap code. We use paginators to go from one page to other page. If we have a lot of content, we cannot display them in a single page. So we can navigate from one page to other page using the paginator. We can display the paginator and style it according to our wish, either like a button hovering over it, or we can give it like maybe with the icons if we need to, with the angle icons, or we can give it like this, the tabs or breadcrumbs. We have Bootstrap cards, which is really important. We can display any content and give padding around it in the card. If we take an example of this, it shows an ID of somebody or identity of somebody using this card. We can give the picture and we can give some content and padding around it, and then we can give buttons inside it. Bootstrap drop downs. If we take an example of this website, when we click on the exercises, we get a lot of content here down. So this is called a drop down here too. We can have different options inside it, where it can also navigate us to a different page or a different section of a page. Bootstrap collapse, we have it whenever we click on it, and then this content shows. Whenever we click on it again, this content will be collapsed. So this can be used with the collapse. We have Bootstrap navs, where we can navigate to different part of a website using this navs like this. If we take an example of this, we have jQuery, Java, W3, CSS, and Auto, all of this as navs in the nav bar. If we click on the other example or other tab, we can go to there using this. So this is called a nav bar. We have Bootstrap forms too, similar to HTML. We can collect the user's input from here, and then using an action, we can send the input to the PHP page here, and then we perform some necessary functions on them. We have tooltips and models. Tooltip gives you additional information when you hover over a content. Example, if you hover over it, it gives you a tooltip and information about it. And if I hover over it, it gives me an information of PHP tutorial. So the similar way, you can have any tooltip over any content or any button, which gives additional information. And Bootstrap for model, if you click on this, it will open a model to you. You must have seen this when you're trying to delete something or when you're trying to confirm with an important process. So it is usually displayed to take confirmation from the user or notify that user some process is happening. We also have a scroll bar, where we can hide the content which is overflowing from the current view, and then we give it down. So we can scroll over to there and see the content. And now we have JavaScript. So JavaScript is used to provide functionality or behavior to the existing HTML elements. If we take an example of this slides, whenever I click on it, this slide will be displayed. And if I click on it, this particular slide will be displayed. So to the slides UI, the JavaScript functionality is written that whenever you click on it, the containing or particular content should be displayed over here in the right side. So that is what a JavaScript does. It also has APIs, which are called application programming interface. And we can also work with text, dates, objects, document object model, different animations, validation, etc. The basic syntax for the JavaScript is we can give it using the script tags in the HTML header tag, or we can also create a separate file using the .js extension. This code, whenever we click on this button, this gets the element which has a ID as demo, which is this, and this will change the content of this. So if we click on this button, the entire JavaScript can change HTML content will be changed. There are a few references at the end for the HTML, CSS, Bootstrap, and JavaScript. And now let's go with Angular. So we're going to discuss about Angular, its features, why do we need Angular versions, and its applications. So Angular is an open source framework for building client applications using HTML, CSS, TypeScript. It is maintained by Google. Earlier, Angular used to be done only with Angular JavaScript, but now we can also include TypeScript with it, because TypeScript is more way sophisticated than JavaScript, and it has more advantages over it. So Angular includes components where we can build scalable web applications. It also has well collected integrated libraries, and which includes routing, forms management, client-server communication. It also provides us with a suite of developer tools where we can develop, build, and test and update our code. And why do we need Angular? So an Angular framework boosts the web development efficiency. If we take an example of a website, we generally, whenever we do a small project or a portfolio, we create different pages for different components and then integrate them together into the index page. But by doing that, we need to build every single page, and which will take a lot of time to build and which will consume a lot of space. So when we use Angular, as this is a single page application, all the components are included in a single page and they'll be redirected when we click on that. So it is a time saver, and it also provides us options to post with extra features and without requiring any additional extensions, but we can also have few extensions if we require them. It also provides us a two-way data binding where we can connect the data from JavaScript or TypeScript to the UI. So as I told, this is a single page application. And in a single page application, if we modify a part of the web page or a content of the web page, only that page will be dynamically updated. Let's say if I update this part of the PPT, only this part will be loaded again, not the entire page. So that is what a single page application does. And this single page applications generally use Ajax to modify only a particular part of page without the entire page reload. We have different versions of Angular. It started with Angular JS, which is called Angular 1. And currently the version has Angular 13. So features of Angular. And it contains a document object model, which is supported by TypeScript and JavaScript, where we can have different animations and different objects in the classes, and it supports TypeScript. It has data binding where we can connect the data from TypeScript file to UI file and UI file to TypeScript file. It has also testing. It has a testing suite of its own. It is Jasmine testing framework. We do not have to integrate different other testing frameworks into it. Whenever we create a component, a specific file called spec.ts will also be created in the component, which gives the testing by default. It has different modules where we can import different packages and different classes from. It is also component based or framework. So if we need to have a page for slides or something differently, we can include it in a single component. It has templates and it has metadata and directives. So advantages of Angular, it is time saving as it is a single page application. We do not have to build the entire website in a constantly. It has data binding option. So we can easily connect the data from UI to TypeScript file or JavaScript file and access them without any problems. It is a single page application. It has a material design like interface. We also have Angular Material, where it provides a good UI with good icons and good code with simplified code, which we can include in Angular. It has better error handling. We can also include APIs in it for handling the errors and the database. It has good speed and performance. We can include different clouds or different databases into Angular for handling the backend, and we can include different APIs. Applications, Angular has a lot of applications where a lot of companies like Netflix, YouTube, Upwork, and JetBlue, PayPal use this Angular application. And we at Worktez also use Angular because it is really good for us, and we can also have the stable well with it. Conclusion. So Angular is an open source where it is initially written in JavaScript, but with time you are using TypeScript with it. It allows us to develop new web applications easily and also test them. We can also include with large applications and code it easily. We have modularity, testability, and it also promotes productivity. Angular also supports different frameworks like CSS and Bootstrap. So we do not have to include them again. It all comes in a package when we use with NPM or Node packages. So this is about the entire UI for today. Thank you.